Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a time when the very foundations of American business were shaken, when a single piece of legislation set the stage for a revolution in how companies operate, compete, and engage with the public. The 1947 Dog Act didn't just change the rules, it redefined them, creating a marketplace where innovation thrived, competition flourished, and businesses were held accountable like never before. This is the story of how a bold move transformed the entire American economy, shaping the future of corporate responsibility, consumer rights, and fair competition. Stay tuned, because what follows is a journey into the heart of business law that continues to influence us today. And the 1947 Dog Act marked a pivotal moment in the evolution of American business practices, setting a new precedent for the way industries approached market competition, corporate structure, and consumer relations. This legislation, though initially met with skepticism, was designed to break the traditional barriers that had long confined business enterprises to conventional operational models. It laid the groundwork for a more inclusive and dynamic marketplace by introducing provisions that required businesses to adopt innovative approaches to customer service and product delivery. By focusing on enhancing consumer satisfaction, the Act mandated that companies operate under a new business philosophy where the needs and preferences of customers were placed at the center of all operational strategies. This shift not only revolutionized consumer business relationships, but also spurred a wave of entrepreneurial ventures that embraced flexibility and creativity, fostering an environment where new ideas could flourish. The Act also addressed the importance of corporate responsibility, ensuring that companies were held accountable for their impact on both the economy and society. This led to the establishment of a regulatory framework that enforced ethical business practices and fair competition, while also incentivizing the development of new technologies and services aimed at meeting the ever-evolving demands of the public. Furthermore, the 1947 Dog Act played a crucial role in empowering smaller businesses by providing them with the tools and opportunities to compete on equal footing with larger, more established enterprises. It democratized the business landscape, enabling a broader range of actors to engage in economic activities and contribute to the nation's growth. Through these progressive measures, the Act laid the foundation for modern American business models, fostering an era of unprecedented innovation and market expansion. The Act's far-reaching effects ultimately reshaped the corporate landscape with lasting implications for business strategy, consumer engagement, and regulatory frameworks that continue to influence the way American businesses operate today. And the 1947 Dog Act not only set the stage for a more open and competitive marketplace, but also challenged traditional business paradigms by promoting an environment where adaptability, consumer-centric strategies, and corporate accountability became the pillars of success. It ushered in a new era that would reshape American businesses and elevate them to new heights of productivity and efficiency. At its core, the Act recognized that businesses must evolve to meet the changing needs of their consumers, who were becoming more informed, more discerning, and more demanding. In response, companies began to rethink their approach to customer service, product innovation, and service delivery. They began investing in research and development like never before, understanding that the competitive edge now lay in offering customers not just quality products, but also personalized, responsive experiences. As this shift took place, businesses found themselves on a journey of continuous improvement. The constant drive for innovation became ingrained in the corporate mindset, with every decision being viewed through the lens of how it would benefit the customer. Employees across all levels were empowered to contribute ideas and engage in problem solving, creating a more collaborative and dynamic work environment. Moreover, the act helped dismantle the monopolistic tendencies that had previously dominated the marketplace, enabling smaller businesses to enter the market and compete with larger corporations on a more level playing field. This shift allowed new entrants to disrupt established industries, creating more choices for consumers and fostering an environment where innovation could thrive. As new businesses emerged, they brought with them fresh ideas, new business models, and new ways of thinking about how to operate effectively in an increasingly globalized economy. The 1947 Dog Act became a catalyst for an economic transformation, promoting a business ecosystem where agility, resilience, and innovation became the key drivers of success. No longer were businesses just entities driven by profit margins. They were now expected to serve the greater good by promoting fairness, transparency, and ethical conduct. The Act's insistence on holding companies accountable for their actions set a high standard, urging them to act in ways that benefited not just their bottom line, but society as a whole. It wasn't just about making a profit, it was about contributing to the betterment of the economy and the people it served. As companies embraced this broader responsibility, they began to rethink their social impact, investing in sustainable practices, ethical sourcing, and environmental stewardship. They understood that true business success was not just measured by financial performance, but by how well they contributed to the communities in which they operated. The 1947 Dog Act's influence extended beyond corporate boardrooms and had far-reaching effects on policy and governance. As businesses adopted new practices and began to flourish, policymakers took note and sought to build upon the framework established by the Act. New laws and regulations were introduced to further support the growth of small businesses, protect consumers, and promote ethical business practices. This led to the establishment of a regulatory environment that encouraged innovation while safeguarding against exploitation. The Act's focus on fair competition created a market that was more equitable, where businesses could rise and fall based on their merits, not their size or influence. The American business model, as we know it today, owes much of its success to the transformative influence of the 1947 Dog Act. By introducing a new way of thinking about business, one that prioritizes customer satisfaction, corporate responsibility, and ethical behavior, the Act set the foundation for an economy that values innovation, competition, and transparency. It reminded businesses that the path to long-term success is not solely determined by financial gain, but by the positive impact they can have on their employees, consumers, and society as a whole. The legacy of the Act continues to resonate in today's rapidly evolving business landscape, where companies that embrace these principles remain poised for continued growth and success. As businesses embrace the ethos established by the 1947 Dog Act, they began to witness a profound shift not only in their internal structures, but also in how they interacted with broader societal forces. The Act's influence propelled the American economy toward a more inclusive framework where small businesses could thrive and establish themselves as key competitors against long-standing industry giants. The emphasis on fair competition fostered an environment in which new entrants could challenge established norms, encouraging creativity and spurring technological innovation. This surge in entrepreneurial spirit gave rise to an era where diverse business models coexisted, each adding a unique value proposition to the market, further strengthening the nation's economic resilience. The success of these smaller emerging businesses demonstrated that innovation need not always come from the largest corporations, but could also originate from more agile, nimble startups with the ability to pivot quickly and meet the needs of a rapidly changing market. In parallel, the 1947 Dog Act sought to establish stronger bonds between businesses and consumers, ensuring that the relationship was built on trust, mutual respect, and a commitment to delivering value. This focus on transparency and consumer rights meant that businesses had to be more attuned to the desires of their customers, incorporating feedback, addressing complaints swiftly, and ensuring products or services offered aligned with their evolving needs. For the first time, businesses found themselves accountable not only to shareholders, but also to the individuals who purchased their goods and services, laying the foundation for what would later evolve into corporate social responsibility practices. As companies realized the importance of this reciprocal relationship, their marketing and operational strategies became more refined and focused on long-term customer loyalty rather than short-term gains. This new approach encouraged businesses to invest in building brand trust and establishing strong reputations within the marketplace, which would in turn lead to sustained success and profitability. The ethical considerations introduced by the Dog Act were also critical in shaping the corporate landscape. The act required that businesses operate with integrity, ensuring that they were not engaging in unfair trade practices, deceptive advertising, or exploiting vulnerable populations. These safeguards promoted the establishment of fair practices that provided consumers with confidence in the marketplace, knowing they were engaging with businesses that were held to high ethical standards. Over time, these principles became embedded in American business culture, influencing not only corporate governance, but also the development of new regulatory mechanisms aimed at ensuring businesses adhered to established guidelines. The repercussions of the 1947 Dog Act extended far beyond the business world, as its far-reaching impact affected the entire structure of American society. The act contributed to the broader social contract between government corporations and the public, ensuring that businesses were held accountable for their role in shaping social and economic outcomes. It reinforced the concept that corporate success was intrinsically linked to societal well-being, and that businesses must not operate in a vacuum, but instead recognize their responsibility to the communities in which they operated. The growth of socially responsible companies became a model for the future, with businesses increasingly expected to play an active role in social issues from education to healthcare, environmental sustainability to labor rights. This shift paved the way for the rise of corporate philanthropy and the integration of sustainable business practices, further cementing the role of businesses as key agents of positive change. As the nation's business environment evolved, so too did the legal framework that governed it. The success of the 1947 Dog Act led to the introduction of additional legislation that aimed to support the ongoing transformation of American businesses. From antitrust laws to environmental regulations, a new regulatory landscape took shape, one that recognized the need to strike a balance between fostering innovation and protecting the public interest. The act became a cornerstone in the development of modern business law, influencing how companies would operate in the decades to come, with its principles continuing to inform and inspire legislative actions aimed at ensuring that business practices remained fair, responsible, and ethical. And the introduction of additional legislation built upon the foundations laid by the 1947 Dog Act solidified the framework for regulating business practices in the United States, ensuring that corporate actions remained in line with public expectations and societal needs. In the years following the Act's passage, the evolution of American business law took on a more complex and structured approach, incorporating elements of consumer protection, environmental responsibility, and employee rights. Legislators, keenly aware of the economic and social transformations prompted by the Dog Act, sought to create a legal system that both supported innovation and addressed the potential harms of unchecked corporate power. The expansion of antitrust laws, for instance, sought to prevent monopolistic behavior and maintain competitive markets, ensuring that no single entity could dominate or manipulate industries to the detriment of consumers or smaller businesses. The intent was clear: to maintain a level playing field where competition was not just encouraged, but was also vigorously protected. As businesses became increasingly aware of their role in society, the scope of corporate responsibility expanded, creating a legal environment that emphasized not only compliance with laws, but also a moral obligation to act in the best interests of the public. Corporate social responsibility, CSR, became a central tenet of business practice, and businesses began to recognize that long-term success was inseparable from the well-being of their employees, customers, and the communities they served. The legal implications of CSR prompted a wave of regulatory changes aimed at ensuring businesses adhered to ethical practices with a particular focus on labor standards, environmental impact, and the rights of vulnerable populations. As the business landscape shifted, consumer rights became a key focal point of regulatory attention. The 1947 Dog Act had already established the expectation that businesses operate with transparency and fairness. However, in the years that followed, new regulations reinforced and expanded consumer protections. Laws were enacted to safeguard consumers from unfair trade practices, deceptive advertising, and the exploitation of personal data. These protections were essential in ensuring that businesses did not abuse their position of power to deceive or manipulate the public. The creation of the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, and other regulatory bodies further underscored the government's commitment to enforcing these standards and protecting consumer interests. As the regulatory landscape grew more complex, so too did the expectations placed on businesses. The legal obligations of companies became more multifaceted, requiring them to comply not only with economic regulations, but also with social and environmental standards. This shift necessitated a more holistic approach to business strategy, where companies could no longer solely focus on maximizing profits, but had to integrate social, environmental, and ethical considerations into their decision-making processes. Legal frameworks began to reflect the growing recognition that businesses were not merely profit-driven entities, but also stewards of societal well-being. This perspective informed the development of environmental laws that required companies to reduce their carbon footprint, adopt sustainable practices, and engage in green initiatives that promoted long-term ecological health. The rise of environmental law was not only a response to growing public concern about the planet's future, but also a direct result of the legal evolution spurred by the 1947 Dog Act. By the late 20th century, businesses were increasingly held accountable for their environmental impact, and failure to comply with environmental regulations became a serious legal liability. The expansion of labor laws also mirrored the broader changes in the business environment. With a growing recognition of workers' rights, businesses were subjected to regulations that ensured fair wages, safe working conditions, and non-discriminatory practices. The labor rights movement, bolstered by the legal reforms of the post-Dog Act era, sought to ensure that all workers had access to fundamental protections regardless of their position or the industry they worked in. Legal requirements for equal pay, anti-discrimination policies, and workplace safety standards became integral components of business operations. By promoting fairness in employment practices, the regulatory landscape aimed to protect the dignity and well-being of workers while fostering a more productive and equitable workforce. The 1947 Dog Act's influence, therefore, did not merely reshape corporate strategy. It provided the legal scaffolding that allowed for a more just and accountable business environment. Through continued legal reforms, the Act's principles were integrated into an evolving framework of business law that emphasized ethical conduct, consumer protection, social responsibility, and environmental sustainability. This comprehensive approach ensured that American businesses would remain competitive on the global stage while contributing positively to society.